Obviously, there was the initial shock of Ned Stark's beheading, which changed the course of television structure going forwards.
It's not like you get tricked into thinking, oh, this guy is like the hero, or like the lead of the show. Like, he is the hero. Even if you were to look at him in the context now of all the characters that have been, he's one of the sort of like most altruistic characters that has been in it. And they just killed him. Like, and it completely sets the tone for like the greyness of the show.
Sir Ilyn, bring me his head.
Because that was the first time they kind of established that they were not playing by anyone else's rules, and that they weren't. You didn't have this normal narrative thing of your lead is going to stay alive, and you know you're with them, and you can stay with them for the whole. It wasn't even in the final episode. No. It was in the penultimate episode.
Yeah, the show. That was the first time that the show really kind of double-crossed the audience.
Yeah. Where
you think you know how TV works, well, this doesn't work like that.
Many people thought it couldn't have a life beyond that. And I struggled to see how it could have a life beyond that. But I think then the Red Wedding, the idea that there was something as shocking, that where all of those characters die in the most brutal way possible, at what should have been a very beautiful moment. Again, I realised that this was something that was very subversive.
So I knew that that Ned's beheading was going to come. I knew that the Red Wedding was going to come because it was in the books, and so even before I read the scripts, I was like aware of it. But the one thing that really surprised me, A, because I didn't read the script, and B, because it wasn't in the book, was when the Night King touches the little baby, and the little eyes go blue. I was like sitting watching it, and I was like, what? All of a sudden, I was like, I didn't understand.
Transported into something even more fantastical in the show. You're like,
and you realise that this has opened like a big old can of worms.
Big old can of worms.
Oberyn is the eyes, because I was just falling in love with that character that was done so well, and he was like really heroic, gone where Bronn wasn't prepared to go.
I hadn't actually read the script for that episode, and so I was kind of watching it, being like, oh yes, the underdog is winning for once in Thrones. Like, It was horrific. It was truly, truly awful, but classic Game of Thrones.
I think it was amazing how the show still managed to pull the same trick like a number of times, and people were still just as angry about it every time it happened. I mean, I think for me, the death that really stays with me, or the moment that I find most shocking and I found most harrowing was the death of Shireen Baratheon.
Shireen being burnt at the stake was deeply, it's like deeply upsetting.
There's something, it was really weird. I feel like I felt like I was used to violence on screen, and particularly in Game of Thrones, because there's a fair amount of it, but there was something about that death that really stayed with me for quite a while afterwards. And it wasn't bombastic, you know, it was incredibly, I don't know, something really dark about it.
I actually sort of show a bit more vulnerability, and it's after Shireen's death, I think, when you come into the room.
That was the weirdest scene.
And I remember saying, I lost my character. I didn't know who she was anymore.
It completely messed with my head when this was just before you were sitting sitting right beside the fire.
Yeah.
And I go, are you okay? And it's and all the audience knows that what you've done, I don't, and I'm showing concern for you. And it was so weird to say that line to Melisandre for Davos. It was like very weird coming out of my mouth. And that's what the great thing about the show is, those things change. And also the fact that he's showing concern, she's vulnerable at that stage, and she's burnt the one precious thing in my life that she's, it was so messed up, the whole thing. It's really weird.
What about you?
I really got to watch this show.
He hasn't watched the show yet.
Well, that's the biggest shock. You haven't watched it.
No, I've seen a couple of episodes.
Giving away a fair bit.
Yeah, and that's, I can't wait to.
Oh, he's just spoilt them for you, though.
No, I'll forget it as soon as I walk out of here.